If you look at photographs of Americans from the 1970s, something immediately jumps out. Crowds at baseball games, families at the beach, people walking down city streets. Almost everyone looks slimmer, not sculpted, not gym-defined, just naturally lean. No obvious obesity crisis, no constant talk about dieting. How did Americans eat more junk food, exercise less intentionally, and yet stay thinner than they are now? The answer is not what most people think. It is not one single habit. It is not a miracle food. It is the entire structure of daily life. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. To understand why Americans were so slim in the 1970s, you have to forget everything modern diet culture has taught you. There were no calorie tracking apps, no protein powders, no superfoods, no fitness influencers. In fact, most Americans were not trying to be thin at all. Thinness was a side effect of how life was organized. Start with food. Yes, Americans ate fast food in the 1970s. McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, and Taco Bell were already nationwide chains. But fast food then was a completely different experience. Portions were dramatically smaller. A McDonald's hamburger was thin, simple, and modest. Fries came in one size. Sodas were small by today's standards. There was no such thing as a 64-ounce drink, no endless refills, no value meals designed to upsell you into eating more than you intended. Fast food was also an occasional treat, not a daily routine. Families still cooked most meals at home. Dinner was something that happened at a set time, usually eaten together at the kitchen table. Snacking between meals was not constant. There were not entire aisles of hyper-palatable snacks engineered to keep you eating. If you wanted something sweet, you might have a cookie, a bowl of ice cream, or a slice of cake. It was not an entire bag designed to be eaten mindlessly. Processed food existed, but it had not yet reached the level of industrial optimization it has today. Food companies in the 1970s had not fully mastered the science of combining sugar, fat, and salt in ways that hijacked the brain. Ingredients lists were shorter. Foods were less calorie dense. Even junk food required more effort to overconsume. Then there is something most people never consider. Eating was slower. Meals were not eaten in cars. People were not scrolling while chewing. You sat down, ate, talked, and stopped when you were full. That alone makes a massive difference. Now look at movement. Americans in the 1970s didn't go to the gym the way people do now. Fitness culture as we know it barely existed, but movement was baked into everyday life. Kids walked to school or rode bikes. Adults walked through parking lots, malls, workplaces, and neighborhoods far more than they do today. Offices weren't optimized for sitting 8 hours straight. Many jobs involved at least some physical movement. Children especially burned enormous amounts of energy without realizing it. They played outside until dinner. They climbed trees, ran through neighborhoods, played pickup games, and disappeared for hours. There were only a few TV channels, no streaming, no smartphones. Staying inside all day was boring. Movement wasn't exercise, it was just what you did to pass the time. Even television didn't dominate life the way screens do now. Families might watch a few hours in the evening, but TV signed off late at night. There was no infinite content loop, no binge watching, no algorithm keeping you sedentary for 8 straight hours. Transportation also mattered more than people realize. Cars were central to American life, but cities and suburbs were designed differently. Errands often required walking between stores. Malls meant walking for hours. Downtown areas were more pedestrian-oriented. You didn't park directly in front of every destination the way you often do now. Another overlooked factor was work itself. Many jobs in the 1970s were more physically demanding. Manufacturing, warehousing, trades, retail, and service jobs required standing, lifting, and moving. Even white-collar workers moved more, simply because offices were less automated. You walked to deliver messages. You got up to retrieve files. The modern frictionless sit-all-day work environment did not exist yet. Stress also played a different role. The 1970s had economic uncertainty, inflation, oil crises, and social change. But daily stress did not follow people everywhere in their pockets. There were no constant notifications, no emails at all hours. Work stayed at work more often. When you left the office, you were unreachable. Chronic low-level stress, which plays a major role in weight gain and metabolic health, was simply lower. Sleep patterns were different too. People went to bed earlier. The day ended when television programming ended. There was not endless scrolling keeping people awake into the early morning. Better sleep alone improves appetite regulation and weight control. Then there is the elephant in the room, sugar. Americans in the 1970s consumed far less sugar than they do now, not because they were especially health conscious, but because sugar had not yet been injected into everything. Breakfast cereal was sweet, but not aggressively so. Yogurt was not a dessert disguised as health food. Bread was not loaded with sugar. Sauces, dressings, and snacks had not been reformulated for maximum addiction. High fructose corn syrup did not take over the food supply until the late 1970s and the 1980s. Once it did, calories became cheaper, sweeter, and easier to overconsume. That shift alone changed American waistlines dramatically. Another surprising factor was social pressure, but not the kind people assume. The 1970s did not have today's body positivity movement or today's extreme fitness culture, but there was an unspoken expectation of moderation. Extreme overeating was not normalized. Being constantly full was not a goal. Food was fuel and pleasure, not entertainment. Alcohol consumption also looked different. People drank, but mostly in social settings. A beer after work, wine with dinner. Not the high-calorie cocktails and constant casual drinking that quietly adds hundreds of calories today. And then there is time. Everything moved slower. Shopping took longer. Cooking took longer. Communication took longer. When life moves slower, you naturally consume less. Modern convenience has removed nearly all friction from eating. Food is everywhere, all the time, instantly accessible. In the 1970s, if you wanted something, you often had to wait. The result of all this was not fitness models walking around. Americans in the 1970s were not shredded. They were not obsessed with protein or macros. They were simply living in a system that did not push constant overconsumption. Their bodies regulated themselves because their environment allowed it. By the end of the 1970s, cracks were already forming. Portion sizes were increasing. Processed food was becoming more sophisticated. Screen time was rising. Physical jobs were slowly disappearing. The 1980s would accelerate all of it. So the truth about why Americans were slimmer in the 1970s is not a secret diet or a lost exercise routine. It is that the world around them made staying lean the default. You had to work harder to overeat. You had to go out of your way to be sedentary. Today, the opposite is true. You have to fight your environment to stay slim. And once you understand that, you realize something important. It was never about willpower. It was about the way life was built.